Hello, this is Ryan from NowGamer,
And this is Adam.
and this is the Battlefield 4 beta, which is now available for everyone to play. It was released on October the 1st for a few people, like guys who pre-ordered Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 3 Premium members, but everyone can play it now. You can download it from Xbox Live, PSN, and Origin.com, and the beta itself is the Siege of Shanghai map, right?
Yes, that's the one that everyone's seeing with the big skyscraper.
And is that in what modes are available?
Conquest and I think Domination, I can't remember. But I only played Conquest, so I think that might be the only one that's available, to be honest.
Okay, well, the way we're going to do this video is we're going to split up into 4 different parts, because you've played the beta quite a lot now, haven't you, Adam?
Yes, I have. This is an earlier video from when I first started playing, but yeah, I have now, yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the scale and the spectacle of the beta and the gameplay on offer so far, the battlefield moments, which if you're familiar with the series you should know what that's about. If not, we will explain when we come to that. How it's similar or dissimilar to Battlefield 3, because I know that was one of the big concerns with what we've seen in the game so far, and the actual controls itself. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the scale of the Battlefield 4 beta, so talk us through that a bit.
Yeah, well, this is the thing that kind of stuck out the most for me when playing beta. This map reminded me a lot of Seine Crossing from Battlefield 3. I don't know how much you've played, but basically that map is based in Paris. You've got a couple of rivers running through and bridges over them, and it's basically the same as that, but it's a lot grander on scale. Everything's bigger. You've got more towers, you can climb up things, you can get on fences and ledges.
Before we continue, which version are you playing? This is PC, right?
This is actually on PC. I did try it on the PS3 and the Xbox as well, but at the time I just couldn't connect for whatever reason.
But the maps are the same size across.
The maps are the same, yeah. This
Sure.
is a 64-player map, so that's obviously only on PC.
Yeah.
And that's kind of an important thing, but we can talk about that later. But yeah, I did primarily play on the PC.
So yeah, I mean, talk us through like the layout of it and the scale of it. You said it was bigger. How is it bigger? In what sense?
Yeah, well, you look at the map, and you've got 5 conquest points, and initially it doesn't look that big, but each area has its own separate style. So D, for example, that I'm parked outside here, it's based inside a mall, and that mall has an escalator, it has multiple floors, it has rooms and stores inside. The stores themselves aren't particularly varied, they all happen to be closed stores for whatever reason. But it adds a little bit extra depth to the maps that weren't in other Battlefield games before. And every conquest point has that kind of distinguishing feature, but there's still a great deal of space between both of them. So it's not so much about moving quickly from point to point now, and more about focusing on which ones you do need, because you can't keep hold of all 5. It just won't happen. And I don't know what the other maps are like in Battlefield 4, but in Battlefield 4. But this map in particular is. I mean, you can look here at the map. It looks fairly small, but the gap between them is huge.
And obviously, there's the highlighted areas on the map there that we can see. Can you go into the grey areas at all?
No, that's off limits, like most Battlefield games.
And how does that work? Is that like a zone that harms you?
Yeah, if you stay out there, you'll eventually just die.
Sure. I mean, what about when you're actually moving around the map itself? And obviously, I think size of the map's determined by how often you run into action or other players. So what's that like?
Well, this has always been kind of the Battlefield thing, really, where running around on foot probably isn't the best idea. You want to grab a vehicle, a tank, a jeep, or whatever it is that's to hand. You might want to jump into another friend's tank, or try and team up with people so that you're not running around by yourself, because you're going to die, especially on this map. As I said about the scale of it, you'll have snipers perched on random ledges that you wouldn't even thought of. They might have had a helicopter drop them off there. And to really kind of defend yourself against that, you need to think about how you're moving around the map and how you're going to get to the next place you want to go to. Because running through the street, you're just going to get decimated. People are going to find you.
Well, this leads me to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which is more to do with the Battlefield moments.
Yeah.
Now, I know Siege of Shanghai is obviously a map that DICE has been pushing, because the centerpiece of the map, I guess the focal point of it, is the big skyscraper in the middle, the big building, the thing that collapses as you play. Now, destruction's obviously a Battlefield trademark. Anyone who plays the games know that. It stands out, it's quite obvious. And that's been a big thing for the marketing campaign for this. So how does it actually work, the destructibility in the building in particular? Because I know a few people have picked on the fact that it's I don't. It doesn't collapse as often as they expected. I don't know. Just tell us about that a bit.
Well, it's actually something I want to talk about anyway, because honestly, I have seen a lot of people criticise that particular spectacle of this map. I don't know what they were expecting. I mean, I'm a Battlefield player, so I've been keeping track of everything to do with Battlefield 4, and even going into this beta, I knew that the skyscraper was restricted in how it was destroyed. It wasn't destroyed by rocket launchers hitting it a number of times or helicopters taking out the rooftop. It's destroyed, just for those who don't know, by destroying the 4 foundation pillars in the basement of the building. And it's easy enough to get to. There's a kind of a car park ramp that leads into it, and you have to basically, if you want to protect that checkpoint, you need to protect that basement, because that's where it gets destroyed. And it is scripted, and it's kind of the gimmick for the map.
So does it collapse in the same manner every time?
Every single time.
Right.
But for me, it's less about the fact that it collapses and more about what it means for the game. So Battlefield Bad Company, for example, if you played Rush, a lot of the things you have blow up, basically, those things were hidden in buildings sometimes.
The gold crate thing.
Yeah, those things. Yeah. Now you could try and plant the bomb yourself and rush in and defend the building, or all that. Or certain buildings, you could just use grenade launchers and rocket launchers and destroy them and get in that way. Certainly a valid tactic. It might have been frustrating for the defenders, but that's part of Battlefield, and it's part of what this is as well. You have to defend not just the checkpoint, but also the base and the building as well. So I don't know, maybe for me the spectacle is less about the actual explosions and this fancy scripted building, which does blow up the same every time, and it looks impressive from a distance. If you're actually on it and it destroys, it's less impressive, because animation messes up and doesn't look quite as impressive. But you can leap off it while it's being destroyed, and you get signals and all this to realise that this is happening.
I mean, do you, sorry to interrupt, is it the kind of thing you suspect has been put in just so it's something that DICE can push as at the front of their marketing thing, or is it something that actually adds to the gameplay?
It does add to it, but I think a lot of people think it's some kind of dynamic destruction. It isn't. It was never planned to be. I don't know where this general sense has come from. To me, it's always been a scripted moment that is designed so that you protect that basement, because if you don't, that's a very easy way it can be destroyed and taken.
I think maybe where it's coming from is people are playing the beta, and that's the first thing we want to do, because that's almost like what they've been trained to expect from the map, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I get that EA and DICE both have to market something special, and a lot of people are excited about Battlefield 4 because it seems to be doing something next gen, whereas Call of Duty Ghosts doesn't seem to be. And this skyscraper is kind of its thing.
Yeah.
But I guess it depends what people want from it. If they want some kind of dynamic destruction, then they're going to be able to do that in different games, but not this one.
Well, that's another thing we wanted to talk about. Is you mentioned the destruction, and the skyscraper is, as I said before, it's kind of the focal point of this map in particular. But apart from that, I mean, what actually separates this from Battlefield 3? Because they look similar. The destruction seems to have been ramped up in terms of scale, if not how it impacts on the gameplay. But what's actually different between this and Battlefield 3 in terms of how it plays?
Mechanically, very little. They've tweaked things. The pace seems a little slower to me, so you take a lot more damage, so you die quicker, basically. And that, as a result, basically means you have to be a little bit more careful when you're moving around. When I first started playing, I was still playing like with Battlefield 3, and I was keen to run off and find my spot, if you will, and use that. But yeah, it takes a lot more work to move around the map, because you're more likely to die. You die very quick, and that's the biggest change for me. But apart from that, it does feel very similar to Battlefield 3. I mean, graphically, the UI, it's not that much of an overhaul. I mean, this is still the beta, so it's perhaps not as high end as the final release will be, but it still doesn't look much different to Battlefield 3.
I mean, you're right, it's the beta, but the game itself is out on October the 29th, I think, so there's not that much longer to go until it's out. So.
No, I can't imagine much is going to change.
Yeah.
Especially the UI and things like that. I mean, they've changed how the unlock system works and all that. They've got a little bit more available from the start, and that's good, and there's a little bit more customization in the classes, so you can choose what type of weapon rather than being restricted to a particular variant. But but in a lot of ways it is similar to Battlefield 3. But again, that was a great game. What is it they want to change? I honestly don't know.
Well, one thing that I know has changed, just based on a couple of tweets and some of the feedback I've seen, is a lot of people have mentioned that they don't like the new vehicle controls. Is that the only thing that's changed with the controls, and how do the vehicle controls work anyway?
Controls as a whole have apparently been changed. The thing is, I have only played on PC, and to me it doesn't feel radically different. I mean, you have the keyboard and you have the mouse, and that's been the same as far as I can tell since Battlefield 2. So it's harder for me to actually judge that. But from what people have said, it seems like they've adopted a more Call of Duty style control method, which I don't necessarily have an issue with. It's kind of a tried and tested system now. One of the things is that Melee's changed mapping apparently. And again, I haven't played it on the console, so I honestly don't know if that's an important sticking point, but surely you can change those and map it to the buttons that you want to use.
What about the vehicle controls? Are they the same?
They are changed, but again, it feels better to me, a little bit more intuitive.
What's changed about them?
Well, again, I played on PC, so it's harder to know, but it's a little bit more driven by the actual movement rather than the camera, which I don't necessarily think is an issue. It's just one of the things where people don't like change, I think. I think it played really well. I enjoyed playing it mechanically. It didn't feel a lot different, but again, I played on PC, so maybe I should report back once I've played the console versions. But again, it's one of those things where DICE are doing something to make it more accessible to everyone, and they have to compete with Call of Duty. Does that mean mapping Call of Duty's controls is going to be negatively impact the game? I don't think it will. I don't think it will at all. On the whole, I think it plays really well.
Okay, so you've been playing this for the better part of 3 days now. So is there anything else you want to add in terms of maybe the balancing, or anything else you haven't talked about, or things that might surprise people playing it?
Balancing is a tricky one to kind of address, especially as I haven't been able to play with a lot of my friends who usually play on PS3 anyway. So understanding that kind of mechanical detail is a little bit harder.
It's hard to make that judgment so early.
So early on, yeah. And I didn't unlock a particular. I kind of stuck to my classes. I tend to go engineer rather than anything else. But what I will say is while it's not a radical change from Battlefield, as we know, it's hard to really understand what it is people want them to change. Some people prefer Call of Duty, some people prefer Battlefield. That's just the way it's always going to be, I think. And for what it's worth, there are mechanical changes that make this better, but I don't think there's a lot that changes a lot. And if people like Battlefield for the things that it usually does, which is vehicle combat, large scale battles and squad team fights, then you're going to get as much out of Battlefield 4 as you did out of Battlefield 3, I think.
Do you think maybe some of it comes from Battlefield 2, Modern Combat, I think it was? Between that and Battlefield 3 there was a big jump. Now I know that DICE has obviously done a lot of the Bad Company games in between, but when Battlefield 3 came out, as I say, it was a big jump. So do you think maybe people were expecting the same kind of jump from Battlefield 3 to Battlefield 4? Because Call of Duty is known as a series that just has versions that maybe don't add that much, that maybe don't justify a sequel year in, year out, whereas people might be expecting something more from this series. Is there an element of that to this?
Massively. I think for me, I was far more excited for Battlefield 3 than I was for 4, just because I'd played so many hours in Battlefield 2 that a numbered sequel to me felt like a big deal. And as I've already said, this doesn't feel radically changed. And I think a lot of people get that sense from a lot of the trailers and the gameplay videos and things like that. Whether that's a negative thing, I don't know. If Battlefield became like Call of Duty and it was a yearly franchise, I think that would negatively impact it. But as it stands, Battlefield is kind of the FPS game that the gamers tend to champion, whereas Call of Duty these days is a little bit more criticised because it's a yearly update. I think people are starting to understand that EA now has its moneymaker, if you will, and they want to try and get as much out of it as possible, and they're apprehensive about that, I think.
Okay, so last word on the beta?
Yeah, really good. I think everyone should at least give it a go. Again, it's not really any more different to the usual Battlefield games that we know. But yeah, if you like that, play it. You'll likely love it.
I wanted a last word.
A last word. Okay. Good.